spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers.
What is terrifying? Haunted houses are terrifying. What else is terrifying? Water is freaking terrifying. It's full of fish and everything. Since the dawn of time, human beings have feared water, avoiding it at all costs, drinking literally anything else just to avoid that hell liquid. It's true. I checked Wikipedia. Shut up. So, when you've got a movie like the one we have for this week, streaming now in a room near you, that puts a haunted house in water, you know you're in for some testicle retracting horror.
Unless you're a lady.
Metaphorically speaking. Yes, this week we're going on about The Deep House, a movie that only showed in theaters in Rebulac, a small town in France, literally, and is now streaming here. No doubt you all know this movie from the media blitz that accompanied its release.
And the fact that we mentioned it once.
Us neither. No, we here at Max Mike Movies, and I've mentioned this before, were actually contacted by a PR firm who wanted us to plug this movie on the show in exchange for, I'm not sure, a Canadian quarter and a tube of circus peanuts, but no, we have our integrity. We have our principles. We have absolutely no business sense whatsoever, so we're going to talk about this movie for free. That'll show the man. Now, I'm not sure what it will actually show the man, but it will really show that thing. I'm your perpetually waterlogged host, Max Levine, and over there in his house in Rilya, dead Mike Luce lies dreaming.
Yog Sothoth, anyone?
But first, we have our poll question.
Poll question.
Last week, we asked you this. Has Hollywood finally erased the stigma of TV? Meaning, is there still a perceived lesser quality to productions on TV? Or do movies still reign supreme? Do we look down on TV, expect less from it? That sort of thing.
I thought it meant, did TV still have holes in its hands?
That's the stigmata of television. And of course that's still happening. My TV bleeds every night. Thank you.
Never mind.
Yep. Our boy Dave writes, we're in a golden age. What? I mean, it's always been a matter of budget, time, and production values. And when I say production value, never mind.
Am I crying?
The cost of quality production has gone down, and the streaming companies have had money to burn, along with a desperate need for brand recognition and market share. The quality of TV is so high right now, and even though I much prefer to go out to the theater, COVID shut that down. So yeah, I think there's no stigma. Interesting.
Huh. Spoken like
Matt
a lawyer.
Reisman, right? Yeah. Matt Reisman writes, I don't expect to have TV to have as many locations and wide shots showing them off. Effects can also be of a more varying quality while still being acceptable. In terms of acting and directing, I expect the same level of quality from prestige TV as I do film.
Seems reasonable, especially since these days, it's a lot of the same actors.
Yeah, and a lot of the same budget.
Yeah.
Geneva Brunetti writes expansively, I think Hollywood has spent the last 10 to 20 years trying to adjust the media convergence and are finding solutions in streaming services. The biggest aspect that drove the stigma in the early 2000s, and hell, even before, with the birth of places like Blockbuster, was the Nielsen counter and its discrepancies with actual viewers and views. Personally, I believe the birth of all these streaming services, while inconvenient to the customer, have helped immensely in bridging the gap. Networks are able to gather more accurate and more direct data and money about viewership, which leads to more data and money being presented to heads. That's an odd image. Why would you present this just severed heads?
Talking heads.
Well, that just stops making sense.
Oh, wow.
And which leads to more money and data being invested into television. Short answer, too late. Yes. I think Hollywood has definitely had a change of heart toward television and its potential and execution. Okay, thank you, Geneva. Yeah. That was very well reasoned.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Nick Hoffman says, I would say there's no stigma at this point, but there's still a dividing line. Wait, Right? And that's centered on the experience itself. A wide variety of films can be seen on TV or in a home entertainment environment with no real loss in the experience when compared to the theater environment. However, there remains a class of films that must be seen in the theater to be fully experienced. Large canvas movies, big pictures. Movies like Lawrence of Arabia, Interstellar, Star Wars. I don't know about that middle one. That's the opening scene in the original, for example. You get the idea? Yes, Nick, we get the idea. No, that's a good point. There are certain types that are clearly made for large screens.
Yeah, and we're actually tackling that in a way in this series. But thank you for the answer.
Professor Dr. Rebecca Pelkey says, I think we're seeing the emergence of new genres of TV that play more like movies and therefore have higher expectations attached. Game of Thrones, The Handmaid's Tale, which also has spectacular cinematography. They're a different thing than the sitcoms or procedural dramas of network TV. That is true. Ted Lasso is great and critically acclaimed, but I wouldn't expect movie-level production values from it necessarily. I think it all comes down to the variety of TV and film that's available. Can a film be perceived as great without great production? Can a TV show? I think the qualities we judge different forms and genres on still varies too much to say definitively.
I think she's basically saying no. But thanks.
Adam Mark writes, I think that the proliferation of really good multi-season story arc TV shows, Sopranos, Mad Men, Game of Thrones, etc., and A-list stars appearing on both TV and movies has erased the stigma of TV. Perhaps the perception of this stigma is fully antiquated. If anything, the quality of film has significantly deteriorated in recent years. Comic book everything, sequels upon sequels upon sequels that crowd out new or novel talent, script directors, etc., while TV has excelled.
Well, I won't say we haven't discussed this in the past, because we have, and I won't say he's entirely wrong, because I don't think he is.
Valerie, oh God, I really am related to Mike, it's not a nightmare, Coons, responded, erased? I don't think it'll ever be completely erased, because the major networks don't have the budgets of Netflix, HBO, and the like. Case in point, a show called La Brea. It seemed like it was going to be big budget, but it had some of the worst CGI critters since the 90s. It couldn't possibly compete against something like Game of Thrones. If we were just talking cable, then I would say yes, but the networks will never be as good.
Oh, gotta love me. Okay.
Interesting. That's a different perspective.
Well, here's a question for you, Max. When was the last time you watched a network TV show? And I actually think I know the answer, but...
let's see, I watched The Good Place. That was
the
a
answer.
network too. But there was another one after. What We Do in the Shed. Well, no, that's cable, excuse me.
Yeah.
No, I watch a network show almost every week. It's one of my great guilty pleasures, Saturday Night Live.
And I think we can all admit that the production values of Saturday Night Live have never been higher.
Yeah, probably true. Richard Tatum says, I'd actually go as far to say that TV is a prestige item these days, but it's also seen as the dumping ground for film that they can't otherwise sell. But
don't say.
Yeah. But films, I think, will always be king. And Vince of the North, also known as the Snowman.
The Snowman.
The Snowman, you betcha. Yeah. Writes, I don't know why we're doing that. He's not in any way Scandinavian. I think the stigma has reversed in recent years. Quality TV is considered serious art and handling much deeper subjects, while giant budgets movies are more superhero and escapist with even higher budgets but not as serious. Actors, directors, etc. can do both now and not have either work against them career-wise. I think in the public mind, movies in the cinema are still real movies, but in practice the distinction is blurred now.
I agree, and I think that's one of the reasons we posed the question in the first place, is that it used to be, let's face it, if it was a made-for-TV movie, that obviously meant it was going to be low budget, it was not generally going to be very good, and when you started seeing movie actors appear in TV, it usually meant that their movie career was over.
Yeah, that was doing guest shots on The Love Boat and so forth.
Yeah, or Fantasy Island, or if you're really lucky, both in the same week. But
I think that's a point. I do think the distinction is blurring. I do not think it's gone.
No.
And again, it's in different quarters. In a lot of just the viewing public like us, I think it may be.
Yeah.
But if you look at things like the Academy Awards, you still see a real bias. People who started in TV, there's a reason Rob Reiner and Ron Howard don't get nominated or don't win Oscars.
I say both of them have been nominated.
Rob
Reiner not so much, but he hasn't done anything lately.
They don't win.
No, they don't. But I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know if it is.
They never
that it could
do.
be based on snobbery would not surprise me at
Penny
all.
Marshall didn't even get nominated, even though her movie A League of Their Own got nominated. She didn't get nominated.
She also didn't she do Big too? No,
that was somebody else. I forget.
she did another. She did another big film like that. That was like, wow, this is really fun. This
is a lot harder.
Okay.
It's a lot harder for TV actors to get respect from the Academy. But of course, the Academy itself is losing a hell of a lot of credibility, and it may just. I don't know personally, but I think the Academy is probably fading into irrelevancy.
Well, all I can say is thank the gods they got rid of all of those nasty things that they used to have in the Oscars that nobody cares about and wants to see, like best score.
Best animated short.
Animated short. Yeah.
Yeah.
Phew.
Fight me, Disney.
But they do have what is it? Twitter award for most popular?
Most Twitter-pated movie. I forget something like that.
I mean, let's all go back to high school, shall we? I'm going to say the same thing in general. I think that a lot of the lines have been blurred, but I think part of the way that they've been blurred is that the idea of TV has been blurred.
Yeah.
Like TV used to be, you had a TV guide, you had a certain number of channels, and there was a show that would run every week on the same time in the same place. Well, almost nobody does that anymore. With a very few exception, they sort of dump the whole season at you at once.
That's on the streaming services. It's not true on network. Or cable.
And the part about that is that although I don't like to watch TV like that, I don't like to binge myself, it seems like most of the viewing public, the younger viewing public, does.
I still do. I like it sometimes. I'll watch a whole bunch of episodes in a row.
Sure. And I think that network TV, by clinging to some of those old, staid habits, is in a way cutting itself off because that's not how people work. But of course, then there's the whole deal with advertising. One of the nice things I like about streaming services is I don't have to see ads. I honestly cannot remember the last network ad I've seen. So that having it on a streaming service, which originally were streaming services of movies.
Yeah.
Netflix was a movie station. That's where you go to watch movies online instead of having to rent them. HBO was the same thing. It was movies. It wasn't TV shows. And eventually they had to adapt because some of these networks or these parent companies started their own streaming services and took all the TV shows away. So I think that's part of the reason. But I agree with what a lot of our listeners, if you could see us now, what our listeners said, which is that the budgets, the talent, there's been a lot of shifting. And of course, there's the pandemic because that changed how we all watched movies. But cool.
Yeah. And thank you so much. That was some really cool answers.
Yeah.
Right there with you on a bunch of points. We had some interesting perspectives.
Yeah. But do we have a new poll question?
And it's over there floating, staring at me with its dead eyes open.
Blub, blub.
What is your favorite movie about religion or that has a religious theme or setting?
Wow. Okay.
Anything from like The Passion of the Christ to Going My Way with Bing Crosby. We're not talking about or The Greatest Story Ever Told or The Ten Commandments. Isn't
the only reason that Going My Way could be considered a religious film is that Bing Crosby pretends to be a priest?
Yes, he does. Boo, 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 boo. Hail Mary, full of grace, you groovy chick.
Okay. Well, people will tell us. And how will they tell them? We can't tell them.
You can't reveal that, lest we release the ancient evil that lies beneath.
I have to release a Kraken.
You should have done that before the show. Now you're just going to have to hold that Kraken in.
I'll edit it out.
Keep the Kraken sealed. Before this gets any worse, let's get to trivia.
The show.
Okay, so the budget for this film, 5 million euros, which is approximately 730,000 kabukis.
How much are kabukis worth?
Nothing. Kabukis are pancakes. Oh. It's about $5.5 million.
That much,
The box office in France, $1.9 million.
Ah.
I don't think we're going to be seeing the Deep House 2, but who knows?
I mean, honestly, that's remarkably tight. We'll get into this.
But $5 million,
doesn't really
especially
look
given
cheap.
what they did.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Nope. This movie was not exactly blessed with a superabundance of trivia. So I had to do a little extra research.
Made some up. Huh?
Now, this movie was made by the directing and writing team of Alexandre Bustillo and Julien Maury, who I'm sure you know from absolutely nothing in this country. Yeah. Blumhouse Productions and the channel Epix acquired the film for North American distribution.
Epix, you know.
Epix, yep.
Isn't that one of those channels where if you have Hulu, you actually have this and don't know it?
Actually, it's if you buy a TV, you have Epix even if you don't have cable.
So I had it and didn't know it. Okay.
Yep, it actually comes on your phone if you look carefully. The movie takes place mostly in southern France. It was actually filmed mostly in southern France, except for the house sequence, which were filmed in a studio in Belgium.
So it was filmed in the deep south of
yes,
France. Get the deep. Get it? Because water under.
You can clear out your desk now.
Oh, I don't have a desk.
The submerged house in which Ben and Tina get trapped was built on a large grid. They actually built the set. They built a house that could be partially submerged into the water for filming scenes in specific parts of the house. Filming took place in a tank about 6 meters deep. Mm-hmm. That's about 20 feet in American. Since the house could only be lowered into the tank at about a rate of 1 meter per hour.
Oh my God!
It would take about 6 hours to lower the entire set into the tank.
Okay.
Yeah, the Montagnac, or evil family, the motto, which Creepy Pierre quotes partially, is the French translation of a famous quote, "That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange aeons even death may die." Did you know where that's from?
No.
That is from one Mr. Howard Phillips Lovecraft.
Oh.
Yeah, from his short story, The Nameless City, and it's supposedly from his translated poem from the Mad Arab, that's how he's called in the book, Abdul al-Hazrat. It's part of the Cthulhu mythos.
Wasn't the Mad Arab supposedly the author of the Necronomicon?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he was the one who was supposed to have written it or he just interpreted it.
In paperback, now available at a bookstore near you.
That's how you know it's a
real book of black magic.
Yep. That's how you know it's evil, because it comes in mass market paperback. There is one bit of sort of diver trivia. Ooh. One of the divers, I believe it's Ben, is using a shearwater dive computer. That's that dealie on his wrist that controls the drone and tells him how much oxygen. In the movie, he can appear to be able to play music through it. For all of you divers out there, I want you to know that I checked this out just for you. No dive computer has the ability to play music. It's too dangerous. Divers are expected to be paying 100% attention to their surroundings, their air supply, their buddy's air supply, their dive buddy's location. Music would be too distracting.
And not dying.
Huh. That is pretty much it. There is not a lot else. Most of it's about, well, it was filmed in the water. That's cool.
I know one piece of trivia.
What's that?
So one of the lead characters, Ben, is played by James Jagger. Yes, he is the son of Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's not. IMDb has, I believe, 3 entries for trivia.
Yeah,
this movie.
Well, I just saw the name and I'm like, that's not a common name. I wonder, is he? Yeah, he is. So, I mean, good for you. He also didn't have many entries in IMDb. But we'll get to that. So, Max, if you would do us a favor, tell us a soggy story, would you?
Sure. Ben and Tina are budding internet celebrities. Emphasis on budding. Ben is a professionally unlikable jackass, and Tina is in love with him for reasons passing understanding. Ben is really into exploring old abandoned houses and places that are supposed to be haunted because that's what the kids are into these days, apparently. Tina goes with him because that's what the script tells her to do. While exploring a disappointing, mysterious lake in the south of France, which turns out to be so 5 minutes ago, they meet Creepy Pierre. That, as far as I'm concerned, is the character's name. Who promises to show them a hidden corner of the lake, which, at the bottom, has a fully intact house. Pierre's creepy staring at Tina and muttering of old Lovecraft quotes makes him seem completely trustworthy, so off they go. They leave Pierre on shore with their car and all their equipment and probably their life savings, because they're that smart, and head into the lake in some of the most expensive dive equipment you are ever going to see on a couple of millennials who try to make their money from podcasting or video streaming.
We all know how that goes.
Along with their trusty drone Tom, a piece of high-tech diving equipment that probably costs as much as a small house. And they do, in fact, discover a completely intact, very creepy house at the bottom of the lake, allegedly about 60 feet down. They explore said house, finding the expected assortment of perfectly intact furniture, disturbing photographs, creepy dolls, and even a brace of corpses. Or are they? Eventually, they discover they have awakened your basic ancient evil, TM. You don't get those in those damp French houses. Oh, yeah, you get them in ancient evils. And must try to escape the house before they run out of air. Les oinks, Monsieur Scooby!
Nailed!
Thank you.
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
The lowdown.
Wasn't sure.
Yep.
So yeah, as Max pointed out, this is this film has the dubious honor of being one of only 2 films that approached us to talk about it. And last time this happened, unfortunately, poor Vince, the snowman, actually watched Rogue Warfare 3.
Yep.
Because we didn't want to.
Yeah, we probably should have asked him to watch this one for us, too. Oops.
Yep. So tell me, Max, why did you pick this movie?
I thought it'd be funny. I mean, I thought, why not? Something that's only been released in streaming in this country, so it fits the theme. And we had heard of it. That's it.
They emailed us.
Because they told us about it.
I mean, to be fair, if they hadn't, there's no way we would ever have considered the film, because we
wouldn't have known it existed. I mean nobody knows this movie exists.
I think if we hadn't been doing the show, it's still at least 3 to 4 years before I would have heard of Epics. So, speaking of hearing people, did you notice who edited this film?
Strangely enough, I did not.
Baxter!
What?
That's it. It just says edited by Baxter. So, is that a 5-year-old kid or a dog? I don't know. And he shows up at the end credits too, and is like, "Yes, Baxter! He's my new favorite credit." Because Baxter.
Okay, cool. We will now only watch movies that have been edited by Baxter.
So yeah, I was a little confused that you picked this film because, well, not really confused because I know you have such a great love of horror films.
Yeah, I am not a big fan of horror movies. I have an odd kind of relationship with them. I'm kind of intrigued by them. I kind of drawn to them. I hate watching them because they scare me, okay? I am a big wimp. I get freaked out. Every jump scare gets me.
Yeah, I usually fall for those too.
Yeah. Fortunately, that wasn't a problem in this movie. So this one, I was really worried at the beginning that this was going to be another found footage movie because that's how it starts off.
Yeah.
And
I did text Max ahead of time because he hates the camera movement. And
it literally makes me nauseous. I mean, I have trouble with it.
Yeah.
I had a lot of trouble in the Cloverfield. I had to leave the theater.
Yep.
But, and some of it is like that, but most of it is not.
Yeah. Well, I disagree. Most of it is handheld footage, but partially because it's underwater, they can't actually move that fast. So most of the time it's just not jarring because it's wet.
Well, also the technology has changed a lot. Like we see them using these handheld Steadicams or gimbal mounts for their their phones or the cameras they're using, so it doesn't jerk around or bounce quite as much.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The film starts, and we are. And please, Hollywood, I know you're listening. Please stop doing the thing where you show us your $50 logo, and then after everybody's shown all their $50 logos, we then see the name of your company printed out because we just forgot 10 seconds ago about your... Yeah. So there was, I think, 5 different companies involved in making this film.
I stopped paying attention, yeah.
Had you heard of any of them?
Nope, not a one.
That's a good sign. That always tells you we're in for a quality product.
Yep, you're in for something serious. And we start off in this old abandoned, I think it's an orphanage.
Or something.
And what we established there is, as I say, Ben is a jackass.
Yeah.
And Tina is too good for him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say I liked the graffiti in the house. The graffiti was cool. It's like, that's kind of like, if you could think of what a graffiti gallery would look like, that's what it was. I can see why people might be vaguely interested in that kind of thing. I don't see millions of views either. So one of the whole things is Ben is like, I don't want a lot of views. I don't want to have a job. I want to be on YouTube. Okay. I mean, and he does sound exactly like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sadly, well, let's get to the acting. So James Jagger plays Ben.
Yep.
He is exactly as annoying as you would think a YouTuber would be.
Yeah. And, Camille Rowe plays Tina, and she's okay. She's not given very much to do.
There's a lot of gasping.
There's a lot of gasping and being afraid, and, Ben? Is that you?
Or really, Ben, stop it. You're terrible. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, because Ben is, in fact, terrible. He likes to jump out and scare her in these scary situations.
Yeah.
Which,
There's one point where they meet Creepy Pierre, and I agree that's probably his name, Creepy Pierre.
Yeah.
And the thing I think I love it. So Pierre is a very typical grizzled old Frenchman, constantly smoking. I never see him pull one out. I never see a lighter. He's
always got one there. It's just an omnipresent cigarette. He's just missing a beret and a baguette under his arm.
Because you know that he was born astride the grave. But Pierre, at one point, it's the only time they actually give her character a moment of truth, because she almost confesses to Pierre, yeah, I don't really want to marry Ben, but she doesn't really say that. She's sort of like, oh no, I love him. He just does a lot of things I can't stand.
Like, exist.
As far as the acting goes, though, here's the thing. I don't know James Jagger. If he's not like Ben, he's doing a really good job, because the character's a jerk. Yeah. I don't like him, but he's fine.
I think everybody's fairly competent in this. I don't think it's the acting is really problematic.
No, and let's face it, there's 3 characters. That's it. There's Ben, there's Tina, and there's Creepy Pierre. Because what more do you need for a film? And they're fine.
And it's kind of neat the way Tina can just slip back and forth between French and English.
Yes.
I mean, when she's speaking English, she has virtually no accent. But as she said, she was born in France, grew up in America, but which I think is true of the actor.
Well, she does a lot better job of that than the muscles from Brussels.
I'm from Belgium.
Or my favorite, my parents were killed and I was sent to the only Belgian monastery in Hong Kong.
Yeah. And initially, when we're getting the establishing shots when they're in the south of France, it's friggin' gorgeous.
Isn't it?
It's like, wow, the first, I don't know, or I suppose chop off the first 3 minutes. The next about 20 minutes is a commercial for the Board of Tourism for the south of France, because it looks so gorgeous. Even the town that is supposed to look creepy and abandoned that they stop in, it's like, I want to go there. That looks nice.
Wouldn't you buy one of those houses and fix it up?
Totally. The guy's like, oh yeah, this is weird. Almost every building here is for sale. Like, how much?
And it's not like they're even on the Riviera, right?
No.
So it's just nice. Everything just looks
nice
really,
town.
really nice.
Yeah. The roads are in really good shape.
Yeah. I mean, buildings look beautiful. Like they're obviously the very old buildings, and they probably could use a little TLC, but quite honestly, you're going to find a lot worse around here. So why not?
So, and the lake they go to, initially when they hit the touristy part where they're like, oh, look at all the tourists, not like us cool people. Here, let's get some wine in plastic cups.
I know, but the lunch truck serves wine.
Of course it does. It's France.
I know.
They
it's
have
great.
juice box full of wine and vending machines for children.
I just like, yeah, I'd go there, even though I can't tell if it's like just a lake or it looks like there's a camp or something there, but it's like, that looks a lot like Friday the 13th, but I'd still go there. I just won't go out at night. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, and I will say this in general, it's actually shot really well.
Yeah, the camera works, the cinematography in general is really good.
Yeah. I mean, I bought that they were in a lake. You know why?
Why?
Because there's crap in the water.
Yeah. It's not perfectly clear. It's sludgy and murky and everything.
And they actually have a reasonable way for explaining that everything looks better than it should, and that is that's one of the creepy parts of the house. Okay, sure, they just built the damn thing, and I didn't even know. Like, I figured they had to have built it because there's no way everything would have been rusted or there would have been something growing, because that's just the way things go. Yeah. But I didn't that didn't bother me at all. The fact that everything, it was creepy because things were not decayed. It actually added to the atmosphere.
That was very effective, I thought. The fact is, here is this house that's supposed to have been underwater for 50 years.
Yeah.
And everything is pristine. Well, you can still think things are floating and a little soggy.
Yeah.
But there's, like Mike says, there's no rust, there's no rot, there's no algae, there's nothing growing. There's the occasional fish swimming through the place.
Well, there's one. There's one fish.
Gigantic honking catfish swimming through the place.
Boy, he looked delicious.
He did, man. Batter him up and fry him.
And even then, the fish, I mean, let's face it, really big catfish are creepy looking. They are.
Yeah.
He might even have meant to be some kind of, I don't know, little demon or something. And I don't
know. I thought it might have been a warning.
Well, I couldn't tell because at one point they get stuck inside the house, surprise, and they're trying to find a way out, and there are no fish anywhere near the house, but they see this one, and they think, oh, let's follow the fish. And they do, and at first it's like, well, maybe it got in here, it must have a way of getting out. And the big problem, of course, is it does have a way of getting out, but you don't because you're too big. Yeah. But is it leading them to the way out, or is it leading them into the place they really shouldn't go, which is, of course, the basement?
Don't go near the basement.
Yeah. So there are some. They're not specific tropes, but there's tropiness about this film. They get into this creepy house and they're looking around. Ben continues to be a jerk by scaring Tina, who does not want to be there because she's smart.
And she's afraid of diving. She doesn't want to do this.
Well, and also she's afraid of haunted houses.
Yeah, which is kind of sensible, really.
Actually, my note is, don't marry Ben. That's the horror.
Yeah.
But so they're looking around, and things are creepy and weird, and there's an occasional floating doll, because, just boo.
And there's a creepy doll. Yeah.
But then they get to the kitchen, and in the kitchen, there is a door that is barred by a life-size crucifix.
I mean, full size. The cross is 7 feet tall. It's got a life-size plaster figure of Jeebus nailed to it. Railroad spikes through the hands.
Yep.
What do? Let's move it. Let's pull it off the door and see what's behind it.
Yeah.
Are you that stupid? You already know this place is creepy. You already know there's something unnatural about it. What? Let's go. Let's move the gigantic crucifix.
Yeah.
Also, they don't seem to care. Oh, look at that! There's a satanic crest in the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh well,
that's where you keep them.
That happens. You drop some soup, it makes It makes a well, they call it a pentagram, but the thing we see later, it's a pentagram. There wasn't even a star in it, so I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe you could make the argument that it's an elder sign from Lovecraft, because there is, as I said, there's some Lovecraftian elements in this.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. I've seen adaptations of Lovecraft before, and some of them pay the money and they get the rights to actually use the right words and stuff. This one doesn't. So it's Lovecraft adjacent, I guess. And it has got some very creepy elements to it. Even the fact that nothing is decayed, the fish is kind of creepy. And then we finally get down to the basement where, guess what, all the horrible things happen. And there are two quote-unquote corpses hanging there. Now, the corpses, when they're hanging there, I'm like, they're just mannequins. I'm not buying this.
It's a willing suspension. It's like, okay,
Right.
yeah, there are corpses, but it's like, and they're wearing what look like plague doctor masks.
Yeah, kind
Except
of.
they aren't. They're rat masks. They're torture masks from the medieval period.
Oh, I thought it looked like a plague mask, but also a gas mask, like a sort of a. But whatever.
They were the sort that you attach them and you put live rats inside them.
Now, the two of them are down supposedly, I think it's 30 meters.
Yeah.
And apparently that's deep enough that you have to go up slowly or bends or whatever. And they have their little meters on their wrists to tell them how much air they have left and stuff. And occasionally we hear Ben saying, hey, you need to slow down your breathing, which is reasonable because she's new at this. And quite honestly, stuff's scary. I don't think I would have gotten past hey, look at the inside of these metal doors. Those look like claw marks, don't they?
Bye!
That's as far as I'd go. So they get to the base. And also there's been like this whole room full of film equipment and notices of missing children. I mean...
Yeah, which have been neatly framed and attached to the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, how much of a signal do you need? Now, they're also aware of some of the tropes. I almost smiled at one point when they find they've gotten past the gates and they find that the place has one of those above-ground crypts. And Ben goes, mate, let's split up. I'm like, you're not serious? Oh, good, you're not serious.
Yeah, I'm glad they do at one point.
They do get separated. They do
Yeah.
get separated, but it's not by their own. They don't mean to. They're trying to go up the chimney, and the chimney attacks them.
Yeah. Well, I said actually, let's split up famous last words in horror movies.
Yeah.
I made a prediction, and this is going to give away some of the ending. Do we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, because I'm sure everyone's going to want to run out and see this movie.
I wrote about halfway through. I have a guess. Pierre is one of the kids from the house. I got that one, hole in one on that one. To be fair, there's only 3 characters in the film, and
you
know
that he had to have some link. There are just some very odd moments too, like one of the many things Ben does that's really obnoxious is he keeps playing again, which he should not be able to do. He's playing music over their diving equipment communication system. But he promises, he stops eventually, but at one point they're down in the basement, and Leslie Gore's You Don't Own Me starts coming out of nowhere, and she's saying, why are you doing that? That's not funny. And he's like, it's not me. I'm not doing it. It's like, that's a very odd choice. It's like, okay, it's kind of creepy, because, I'm sorry, Leslie Gore just has that kind of voice, but...
Well, it was also in French, which was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at least you're supposed to have some little kid singing la 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 la.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is French. La 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 la.
Well, I'm glad you got it right.
Thank you.
My note
strive
was
for accuracy.
My note was the movie unashamedly, literally turns the soundtrack on.
Yeah.
Tina says, "Hey, could you play a song?"
There isn't a lot of background music in this movie.
There's 2 pieces, pretty much. So they're down there. There's all sorts of things that basically say, hey, you really shouldn't be here. I mean, despite the fact that the whole house has been boarded up before they will...
From the outside.
Yeah, apparently the deal was that, before we found the real truth, that the locals willingly flooded this valley with this house in it. And what they didn't tell everybody is, oh yes, and we boarded it up and stuck a crucifix on the cellar door before we did that. So we don't want anything... It wasn't
just that house. There was like a village down there. And it was like what the Tennessee Valley Authority did.
Well, so we don't see anything except
we don't really know much about it, yeah.
For $5 million, that's fine. Because again, I don't think the film looks cheap at all, which is surprising.
No, it's surprisingly high quality. All of it is. The camera work, the sets, everything.
Yeah. The only thing that they do, and this is common in horror films, and unfortunately is more in common elsewhere as well, is that while the photography is generally really good, when something finally happens, they strap the camera to a shrimp.
Yeah, you can't, and it's already, and this is a mistake because it's already dark and murky and hard to see.
Yeah.
And then when things happening, the camera starts flailing, and I'm like, okay,
Yes, somebody's in danger. I don't know who it is.
I assume badness is happening.
Yeah.
Is there how many people? Are there 9, 2, 1? It's annoying. Oh, yeah, just to make it clear, what they do find in the basement are those 2 corpses,
Right.
a man and a woman, chained and wearing these freaky masks, and they're sort of floating over this massive iron seal,
Yeah,
which, Ben mistakenly calls a pentagram.
right.
And of course, they keep poking around and they find jars of body parts and all sorts of. I'm sorry, at this point, it's like, okay, checklist. Yep, human eye. Yep, creepy doll parts. Yep, human parts. Yep. It's like, we're out of the unique area of the house underwater, and now we're just going down the horror movie checklist.
Yeah. And of course, what's Ben's idea? It's like, here's this weird seal right below the 2 chained dead people. And it's like, hey, I bet the answer's under here. No, don't open it. Yeah. Thankfully, he doesn't. No. I think partially because it's like, oh, our $5 million just ran out. Ugh.
Yeah.
So, obviously what happens is things get creepier and creepier. And they do have, I will say this, they do have a built-in bit of tension, which on one hand, for the price, works really well. On the other hand, is kind of cheap, which is we're going to be underwater. We can only be under here so long, and we have to get out. Yep. So the tension's built in. I didn't have a problem with it, partially because, again, it was photographed so well, and they spent so much on the set. I'm thinking it's about $4.5 million. So sorry, James, we don't have much for you.
Yes, and of course, shocking nobody, the corpses begin to move. They open their eyes.
And when they do...
Yeah.
They are really creepy.
Yeah. The movements are really disturbing. They move like bloated corpses would move.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they don't move fast.
No.
But not like zombie.
No.
They move like people would move underwater. And there's this, the creepiest part is there's no sense of urgency from them.
No.
There's no like, I'm going to get you. It's just like, I'm just going to reach for you slowly. And they run in, of course, the daughter. She's in there, too. So as we find out that it's a family of 4, the Montagnacs, and they realize from an obvious painting of the family tree, which for some reason doesn't have a photo of the son's name is Pierre, as Mike said.
Yep.
The daughter's name is, I don't know, Evelina, I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
And they start chasing them around the house.
Right. Well, the house somehow, the window they found that they could get in is bricked up when they try to get out, which is fine. I mean, this is a movie thing, a horror movie thing. I don't care. It didn't bother me. There's obviously, of course, at one point the electricity comes on, which was even weirder. I'm just sitting there thinking, how did people not get electrocuted?
Yeah.
But, things get creepy they don't get, once they start getting ultra creepy, they get ultra creepy very quickly, but nothing happens particularly quickly in this film, which I guess is what the underwater part is for. Oh, we can be slow because it is underwater. As you know, everything underwater is slow. But there's one point, though, where they're in the basement again, and something's happened to Ben. Let's say he got taken over by the fish. I don't know. And we get it. We find our way into yet another secret room. It turns out this is the secret family home theater, which is
we run into the evil home theater. Evil.
I don't know if you felt this way, but they start the projector because this, as I said, the electricity comes on, and I still don't know how people are electrocuted.
Suddenly the appliances work. Yeah.
The problem is they're forcing Tina to watch a film that's a lot scarier than the one we're watching.
Yeah, basically they force Tina to watch their evil home movies. And this is where we learn about the evil family and that they used to kidnap children from the area and sacrifice them.
Yeah.
We don't know to whom or to what.
No.
Just sort of general sacrificiness.
Yeah, sacrificiness.
And then the villagers felt the need to put bags over their heads because they didn't want to be recognized by the people they had come to kill.
Right.
And then they killed them all, but the son escapes.
Right. Pierre.
Yeah.
Pierre. We always shoot Pierre.
Pretty much.
That's Claude. But.
Yeah, I'm also a little surprised. This family must have been pretty well off 50 years ago to have their own home theater. And that was a nice theater, by the way.
Yeah, there was one mistake Ben makes that just kind of irked me because I used to be in film school. He holds up a film and goes, "Oh, Super 8." It's like, no, that's 16. Dumbass.
Well, how would he know?
How would he know Super 8?
Yeah, probably he probably heard the name once.
And of course, they're supposed to be filmmakers. Yes, I know digital, but you'd think they'd know something. Their whole idea, of course, of this is like the reason he keeps going, and even though there are so many signs that basically say, "I'd turn back if I were you," is he wants to get to that point.
He wants to be famous. He wants to get the most exciting footage he possibly can, which is disturbingly believable.
Yeah.
By the way,
I was going to ask you, did you think that this film was in any way making a commentary on today's celebrity? And
I think there's the desperate need for views. Yeah, I think there's a little of that. You can't avoid it.
Yeah. We have our talking points. I wondered if you wanted to get to our talking points.
Sure. I would also like to point out that this movie is a major anti-smoking movie. It is, because if Tina had laid off the cigarettes, she would have been able to hold her breath longer, and she would have made it to the surface.
Oh, you gave it away.
I did.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But
yep.
Yeah, I thought before they actually the first thing they do before they put on all their gear and go into the water is have a cigarette. Now, Pierre just magically has them, but well, he's French. I guess that's a French thing.
Yep.
But here's two people that are going to go scuba diving in very, very deep water.
And we see Tina at the beginning of the movie trying to build up her lung capacity, holding her breath in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And cigarettes don't help much with your lung capacity.
Not generally.
Kind of the opposite, yeah.
But anyway, not that we're necessarily done with our notes, but talking points.
Yeah.
Does this movie feel like it was made for streaming, or would it have felt as easily at home in a theater, not necessarily 30 meters below the surface?
Oh, this definitely feels like it was made for the theater.
Yeah.
The creepiness, they wanted people to be able to go, wow, look at this, it's all filmed underwater. And honestly, it would probably have been a little easier to see what was going on a bigger screen, a bigger, brighter screen.
Yeah. Well, which leads us to, would seeing this movie on a big screen add anything?
Yeah, I think it would. I think if nothing else, maybe we'd have a better idea of what's happening, although I wouldn't swear to it.
Well, and here's a clue. Hey, filmmakers that are going to have multiple people underwater in wetsuits, they don't all have to be black.
Yeah,
Just
they
saying.
come in different colors. I've seen them in magazines.
It would have been so easy to tell them apart if Tina had been wearing blue or something.
Or red or something. People, they often wear bright colors because they're easier, so they don't, if they get lost, it's easier for someone to find them.
And there really wasn't a point, I think, in the film where not knowing which one was which had anything to do with the plot. It was just an unnecessary contrivance, like, they're both wearing black because seriously, they didn't do the thing like James Cameron did in The Abyss, where he's like, look, I want people to know who my actors are, I'm going to develop a face mask that shows the whole face. Now, it's obviously he had more money than they did, but in The Abyss, when somebody's out in a wetsuit, whenever they turn to the camera, you instantly know who it is because you can see their whole face. The regulator's built in. Cool, I get it. There's two people in this film besides cigarette-smoking creepy Pierre. All you had to do is give him a color. That's it.
Yes,
and it would have solved that problem. I agree, though. It was beautifully photographed, and I think you would have actually, for want of a better word, felt more immersed in this film if you were in a big, dark room, as opposed to, in my case, sitting on my studio floor watching it on my Mac. So yeah, and again, we've said this before. It's $5 million well spent. It looks really good. I did not feel cheap at all in this film, and $5 million is nothing.
No, that's one guy's salary in a lot of cases in a big Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it's not even an advertising budget. That's nothing. So what other notes do you have before we get to the wrap-up?
One thing, it was unusual for this movie to be made at all. The French film industry, they don't like horror movies.
Oh.
They don't make a lot of them. It's funny, they get really into some of the American ones. When the old Nightmare from Elm Street movies came out, France was nuts for Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, a genius.
I don't know, yeah. I remember Robert Englund saying, yeah, it was weird. They went crazy for Jerry Lewis. They went crazy for Pee Wee Herman. They went crazy for Freddie. I think it's the IE, Jerry, Pee Wee, Freddie. They just like that.
I think you're lying, Grandpa.
Well, that's what, you can argue with Robert Englund. I won't. Okay. He's scary. It was the director for both commenting in one of the interviews I read on how difficult it was to get the movie made at all. Because it's not horror movies, despite the fact France is the ones who came up with the Grand Guignol Theater, which is, let's see how much blood we can get on this stage.
Oh.
Yeah. Yikes. Grand Guignol is incredibly gory theater.
Yikes.
But
other notes, or shall we get to the...
I'm sorry. It's one of those things where just media crossovers. When Ben becomes evil, he stops being a jerk and is now just flat out evil and is taken over, and he says, "This is the way." I'm going, oh God, it's the Mandalorian.
That's it. He is a wet Mandalorian.
Yep.
Well, in that case,
that's pretty much what I've got. How about you?
I'm pretty much done, Mr. Limpet. So let's get to the end of this this show, shall we?
Uh-huh.
The Roundup.
So, Max.
Yes.
You don't like horror movies.
I don't.
You had preconceptions because they emailed us, which is...
Yes.
Is that more telling about us or them? I don't know. But you picked this movie, so what did you think?
I was a little surprised. I mean, first off, I don't think it's a good movie in that it doesn't really hold together. It's very shallow, but it's nowhere, as it were. I mean, it's only they say it's 30 meters, and it's really only 6. But it's surprisingly well made. It looks really good.
Yeah.
It's just very generic otherwise. The whole thing is, so what if we took a horror movie and filmed it in underwater? I think it would go something like this. It's like, okay, that's all you had. That's the only original part you really came up with. If they had tried a little harder, they could have made it more interesting.
Yeah.
But it was, it's kind of damning with faint praise. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. What did you think?
So one of my notes is kind of tensely boring.
Yeah.
There's not really much of a story here. And what there isn't told till about the last 10 minutes, and it's only told because Ben's been possessed, I'm guessing, by the screenwriter?
The spirit of exposition.
Yeah.
The power of exposition compels you.
To tell us what's been happening, because otherwise, and I will say this for the film, it's brief. It's an hour and 25 minutes. So they don't linger. Well, they do, but not as much as they could have. I also had to ask, is this a movie about us watching them make the movie that we're actually watching?
Maybe.
I don't get clever. I get annoying, but whatever.
Yeah. And
there's
I
two
have
things.
to say, I didn't think it was that scary.
It wasn't. There were jump scares that I was like, here it comes. Oh, there it goes. I usually fall for those too.
Yeah.
They didn't scare me. If it was in a theater, maybe I would have been. I don't know. Maybe that did make a difference. The problems I have are, like Max said, there's nothing new here. I honestly think that there's a better ending under that thing in the basement, that big seal. I think there's a better ending down there. Because the ending's lame.
Yeah.
My guess, first, almost from the beginning of the film, I said, let me guess, the only one to get out is Tina. And that's almost true.
Yeah.
Basically, the deal is this. If you want to watch the film, stop here. I don't think you do. Pierre has spent the last 50 years tempting divers into the house. Yep. And the house eats them, I guess.
Or something.
We don't know if any of the body parts are from 50 years ago or they're recent or whatever. I'm guessing the two people that are hanging there are the parents.
I think that's what I figured, but
they've been dead a while. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But all we see really is it's an hour and a half, or well, to be fair, an hour and 10 minutes of these two people, one of whom we really don't like, and the other one we really wish would get away from the first one, going through a very creepy set. That's pretty much all that's happening.
Yeah.
And then he gets possessed by the spirit of exposition, tells us what's happened. It's like, what you didn't know is that 50 years ago, somebody that you're going to find out is Pierre, blah, 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 blah. And then poor Tina somehow manages to get out of the house and basically dies, I'm going to guess, about 15 feet underwater. She doesn't make it to the surface. She doesn't
quite make it to the surface.
And then we get
Pierre. We had the post-credit sequence.
Yes, there's a post-credit sequence.
There is, with just a shot of two young women with diving gear and Pierre standing behind them. That's it. Staring at the lake.
Which, I don't know if it was a sequel grab so much as if it was the film going, we could not think of anything else, so here you go.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, surprisingly well constructed visually.
Yeah.
Reasonably well acted, but nothing here that's particular. Nothing got past creepy. No explanation for anything, and we end up not really caring. So
yeah, that sums it up.
What a shallow film.
So yeah, basically, meh,
but underwater. So, Max, we have a new new poll question.
Yes,
if
we
you
do.
would go over that and tell people how to answer our poll question,
I will.
We can wrap this mummy up.
What is your favorite movie about religion, or one that has a religious theme or setting? And you can answer this by emailing us directly at us@maxmikemovies.com or going to our website, maxmikemovies.com, and leaving a comment. You can also find us on the socially mediated places like Facebook and the Twitter under Max Mike Movies. You can find us on the podcast app of our choosing, because we control everything. We control the horizontal, the vertical, the diagonal.
We don't.
The rabbit ears.
We don't.
Oh.
We're still on Spotify.
Yep. And contact us that way. But we are not done with this series. Oh, no, we're not. We have another movie that we're going to watch and talk about next week. Mike,
we do.
What is that movie?
Hey, do you like birds?
If they're well cooked, sure.
You like finches?
Well, they kind of stick between my teeth, but sure.
Well, this film has nothing like that in it. The movie is Apple TV Plus. Yeah, I know we've been there a few times before. Yeah. Hey, we never took you to Epix, though. And by the way, if you have Hulu, you have Epix. If you have nothing else, you have Hulu, you have Epix. We're going back to Apple TV Plus for a Tom Hanks film. This is actually his second film with Apple TV Plus. The first one, I think, was about some plane pilot guy. Don't know. This one's called Finch, hence the bird jokes. And it's really a remake of A Boy and His Dog and his robot.
Okay.
Except it's not, and it doesn't have Don Johnson in it.
Oh, but does it have William Daniels?
No. It's got a dog and Tom Hanks. Everybody loves Tom Hanks.
The dog doesn't talk like William Daniels.
Well, to be fair, I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it does.
Ooh,
except I think William Daniels is dead.
That's okay. That doesn't stop anybody from putting someone in a movie. Look at Princess Leia.
Yeah, true. If you would like to like Tom Hanks with us next week, then like on over and listen to our next week's episode. Finch!
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.